I'm here today with Jim Gregory of Fetal Blood Eagle to talk about Indoctrinate, out February 25th on Listenable Records. How are you doing today?
Great. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure talking to you and picking your brain as far as this new record, as far as this new band is concerned. So what gave birth to Fetal Blood Eagle?
Short version is my last band, we were kind of done. After we finished up our fourth record, it wasn't really going anywhere. And I had met Sven in 2018 on a tour with Aborted that we were on together. And we got to be pretty good friends. And the other guitar player with me, Ryan, and I started writing this. And we needed a vocalist. And Sven wanted to do it. And we had Lenny and Kendall ready to go. So it was pretty quick and painless. And yeah, that was about it.
Did you have like a mission statement of sorts in terms of what you wanted Fetal Blood Eagle to sound like, to be like?
Just heavy and fun, nothing terribly serious. Yeah, it was. I think I was kind of tired of doing well, for one thing, my last band, I had to spell the band name for like 7 years, so I was kind of sick of that shit. So I needed to come up with a band that was going to be something people remembered. And then, yeah, just fun and heavy. That was about it.
Was that the sales pitch that you gave the rest of the guys? Fun.
No, I was like, hey, dude. No, I just said, hey, dude, I wrote a bunch of songs. Let's make a record. And they were like, yeah, all right. It was that easy.
I can see the fun part, at least in the lyrical content and also in the names of the songs, and we'll get more into that. But how do you develop your own creative process when it comes to start putting this band together, and what do you wanted the sound to be like?
I mean, there's not really a lot of thought going into it. It's really just based on feel for me. I can and just, you know, us expressing our own voices, you know, and it really, there's not a lot of plotting involved. It's not this big conception of things or anything like that. It's more like what feels right and put it out there and see how it works. That's about it.
And then see what you get from the people listening to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the key elements for me, at least, from this record is the fact that you guys were able to put an album together with 10 songs, 34 minutes, and it felt like you got a lot from it. It's almost one of those that less is more. Is that how you see a record like this, specifically when you have a band that is as heavy as Fetal Blood Eagle is?
I think so. I don't think you want to go over 40, 45 minutes. I think in this day and age with people's attention spans, it's not really necessary. And the other thing is if you're just going to keep, you know, hitting songs really hard with people and stuff like that, I think that brevity is the better part of that. I don't think you need to write 2.5-hour concept albums. We'll leave that for other people.
Yeah, I thought you guys nailed it, because when you listen to the record, it's the aggression that the album has, the intensity that the album has could easily become overwhelming for the listener. But the fact that it's only 34 minutes, it actually gives you a sense that, you know what, I can go for another round again. So in my opinion, that increases the playability of the album if you're going from start to finish.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, we're all pretty experienced doing this, and I think every fan of heavy metal's listened to an album and just thought, oof, if they just shaved a few minutes off of this thing, you know. And there's definitely songs out there that I'm like, whoa, I don't know if I can do that again. So I think we're at that point where we're like, nah, not necessary. We'll just write it and shit it out and let everybody listen to it.
I love that. What do you see being the commonality or the similarities that these tracks have? And on the other hand, what do you see as being the uniquenesses that they bring to the forefront?
Well, I think the main thing was just that they were catchy, and that we have some grooves and some solos, ripping vocals, kick-ass drums, you know, stuff you can tap your feet to, hooks, you know, choruses, that kind of thing. And, you know, make sure it was cool. I mean, that's pretty much it. I don't know if it really goes beyond that.
Do you see this album sit somewhere in between old school death metal and more modern death metal sounding records?
I mean, I guess modern because
the production,
probably the production, yeah, the production, yeah. the minute you have crystal clear production, fans think whatever they're going to think. And I just know for me that the really bad production of albums that like maybe you and I might have grown up listening to, I don't know if it's really stood the test of time. I mean, I'm able to take my head and put it back in 1990 and listen to an album and understand why it sounds that way. But I think for younger fans, maybe it just sounds like shit. So I always prefer like the good production myself because I just think it lasts longer. I think it makes it more timeless. And then old school, yeah, it would be because we're all old, except for Ryan. He's a kid.
I agree with you 1,000% because I live with a teenager and sometimes I'm showing him some stuff from back in the day and he's like, did they record this in a tunnel? Like, I mean, this sounds horrible. What the hell were they thinking? So I totally agree with you 100% on this.
Yeah, it gets rough. So, and you know, it's for us, it's just like, okay, well, I could get why this sounds this way, and some of the honestly, some of the analog production to me holds up better than that like sort of late 90s digital production where the drums would sound like fried eggs and stuff like that when they're hitting cymbals. I was like, oof. And so I definitely don't blame bands for going back and remastering stuff and tweaking it a little.
Yeah, the modern production has perhaps a little bit of a longer shelf life, if you will.
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the production's gotten so much better, not only within the studio world, but like live too. Because back then, it's not like they geared amps towards death metal, you know. So
one of the things that I noticed going through the track listing on this album was some of your options for song titles, and I thought that it was so genius that I almost think that people are not going to realize the genius that went into creating some of these titles. Titles like Only Meth is Real and Cinder Block Suicide. I mean, those are two of my favorite songs, not because of the title, but because the songs rip. But what inspired you guys to create these titles? Is there a little bit of an homage there?
well, if you're referring to Only Meth is Real, if you didn't catch the Celtic Frost reference, you don't know who Celtic Frost is. And they did the moniker Only Death is Real. And of course, the song's about a guy that does meth. But so I was just trying to be funny. And then Cinder Block Suicide was Lenny, our bass player, came up with that. And I got the funniest message from him. He said, dude, so I got this idea. This guy, he puts a cinder block on a ladder and he keeps dropping it on himself, but he's too stupid to kill himself. Do it. And I said, all right, man, yeah, call a song that, fuck it. And that was about it.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. As far as the guitar sound, did you have something specific that you wanted to bring into this band that perhaps you hadn't had a chance to flex before?
In terms of just like the guitar tones and stuff like that?
Yeah, in terms of the tones on the guitars.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because Chris Donaldson and I kind of agree on what a guitar should sound like. And we're kind of more old school. We like, nowadays, a lot of guitar players push the mids way up and stuff like that. And we actually prefer more of a scooped mid sound. And then we let the bass sort of fill in that mid-range region along with the lows. And just to make it so it's, and I remember telling him like weird descriptors, like I need it to sound like a 454 with a blower on it, dude. I don't want it to sound like a rice burner. I don't know. And he said, I got it. So that was about it.
Your descriptions are all on the dot. Like, I mean, like unbelievable. I love the analogies. I love the descriptions. Was there any tracks that didn't make the cut for this album, or what the fans are going to listen to? These 10 songs. This is what you guys did.
That's everything. Yeah, that was everything we came up with. There was no fat on the album. We had written it and just, it was like, let's just knock it out and not really have, there was like no discussion about it. There was no pre-production. It was, here's the guitars, here's the drums, here's bass. And then Sven, when he goes to do the lyrics, we're like, here's the lyrics. And he goes, can I change some of the words? We're like, yeah, do whatever you want. So everybody had sort of free reign to sort of do whatever they wanted in terms of the music and stuff like that.
So there was no pointers from you to Sven, for example, because I thought his vocals on this record were a lot more dynamic than probably what we're used to in Aborted. You didn't mention anything to him. You give him like completely free reign. Bring what you want to bring.
Yeah, he had carte blanche, man. Like it was, I mean, I'm not going to tell the guy what to do, you know, and I'm not a vocalist, so I don't feel qualified to tell the drummer or the vocalist like what they should be doing. And the other thing is that like I think with this album in particular, because we laid a little bit more carpet and it's a little less, in my mind, it's a little less frenetic than the stuff you'd normally hear him on. I think we gave him a little bit more of space, you know, to do things creatively. And I remember he'd message me or he'd call me and he'd say, hey, this riff in this song, it goes on a lot. And I'm like, yeah, that's called a verse. And then you do your words there. He's like, yeah, but I mean, normally I'm not used to it doing this. So it was definitely a discussion. And yeah, and he was like, it was challenging. We got to one of the tracks and he said, I don't know if I can do vocals all over the ending. I said, don't worry about it. I got something for that ending.
What track was that?
That was disembowelment, decompression, disembowelment. So the ending was going on and on and on. And in my head, it was already done. And he said, I don't have enough to do this ending. And I said, go to this marker and I'm going to put something in there. And he was like, okay. And so that's when I spliced in some audio from the Running Man.
Wow, well done, well done. Is working with Sven an interesting prospect for you? Is he the kind of creative guy that it's just fun to have around when you're putting an album like this together?
Yeah, like he and I have a lot of things in common, and I think it made life really easy, which is, you know, usually with vocalists, first of all, he's a drummer. So a lot of people probably don't even realize that. So he's already a musician. So he has already good rhythm. And I've had other vocalists ask me for whisper tracks. And I'm like, really? But that's a thing, you know, and they want somebody to guide them through a song. And that's nothing like him. You can just hand him stuff and then off he goes. And then he and I have a similar sense of humor and we like a lot of the same movies and stuff like that. So like when we were giggling like idiots about the whole thing, it was like, that's going to be funny. And I'd get funny texts from him. And I remember like he did the one track and I get this text just randomly. I'm like at the grocery store or something. And it says, hate fucked face is a winner with a bunch of exclamation points. And I'm like, God, I love this fucking band. Only this band would I get that and it's a text and, you know, think that's a good thing. Like if you got that text, you probably think something was wrong somewhere. But, yeah,
I think it's a winner too. The first time I heard the track and I saw the title of the track, I was like, how come nobody's ever thought of this before? I'd be like, this is unbelievable. So yeah, I totally agree with that text message. Is this going to be a project for you guys, or is this going to be a band?
This is a full-fledged band. We're going to tour. We actually are almost finished writing our second record. Because believe it or not, this album in particular was finished maybe like 10 months ago. It's been in the can for a while. It was just waiting for a right schedule to put it out there. So yeah, we're going to do as much as we can and play as many shows as we can and all that good stuff.
One last question for you. Overall, what has been the most rewarding aspect of not just starting the band, but putting this record together?
The most rewarding part? I guess when people get the jokes, for me, like, is the best part, because humor is one thing and metal is a whole other thing, and then you start putting them together and it can really fucking backfire. So and it's been funny because I was telling another guy doing an interview that the people that have really understood the jokes have all been in the international community, and it's actually been people from the United States that were so pissed off at the band name and stuff like that, and we're just like, oh, this is stupid. And I'm like, great. And, you know, so it's been interesting, but most people have been really receptive and understanding of the whole process. And they, you know, I mean, if you see these song titles and you think it's death serious, I think you have problems. I think it's time to reevaluate your life.
I totally agree. I mean, the moment, first of all, you look at the band's name, right? Like, I mean, that should be your starting point right there. And then you go down the track listing and you start to realize that this is still death metal, but death metal doesn't have to be a suit and tie death metal approach where everything has to be bloody serious. You can have some fun with it. Yeah. And I think a lot of, within that genre, I think there's a lot of, there's a gap, there's a hole that needed to be filled, if you will. No pun intended here, but there's a hole that needed to be filled. and I think you guys are filling it to the rim. I think this is great. I really enjoyed the record. I thought it was the design, the duration. I mean, everything was spot on. When I think about a death metal album, this is what I want from a death metal album. I don't want the album to overstay its welcome. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is it. You guys nailed it.
Well, I appreciate that, man. It was, I think, very much a conscientious decision to try and make it to where it's punchy and enjoyable, and top to bottom, you could listen to the record. You didn't find yourself trying to click through things, and
Yeah, very hooky. There's a lot of hooks in it. So really well done. Really well done. Well, Jim, thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciated talking to you about the band, about the record. All the best for you guys with the release, and maybe I'll see you on the road at some point in time.
Sounds great, my friend.
Take care, man.
All right, later.